what effects would passage of the ballot one question, rolling back the income tax and eliminating it, have on the lives of Massachusetts residents? Please be specific. Mr. Hayes.
Now we find out if my mic is working. Sounds like it is. On this particular question, there are many things that this would mean to the state of Massachusetts. The first among them that I'd like to point out is that the average working taxpayer would have $3,600 back in their pocket every year. When you look at this type of a cut, that's what it means in the pockets of those people who are paying those taxes. So that is a key thing. If this initiative were to pass, I think it would be a very big message from the voters who have already voted in favor of rolling the income tax back to 5% several years ago. And the legislature basically snubbed their noses at them and froze that at 5.3%. So I understand the sentiment that people are frustrated and now they're ready to shout louder, so you're going to cut back the income tax completely because you didn't listen to us. And if their sentiment is that, while this is seen as a very closely contested race, I would think a passage of that particular issue would speak well for candidates who are reform-minded and are looking at going up to Beacon Hill to reform the government and get them to focus on their spending before they look for more tax revenue from us. Now, as far as what this is going to do specifically, it's going to force a war on Beacon Hill. We know that's going to happen. As soon as this is passed, there's going to be the war between those that are going to threaten the taxpayers. You're going to lose police, you're going to lose schools, you're going to have devastation at the town levels. Well, as your state representative, my first job is to go up there on your behalf. I've looked at the 2009 budget figures. It's about $6 billion that we need to protect for the local towns and cities. We're talking about $4 billion of that $6, which is the school aid that we need to protect. There's another $1 billion from the lottery revenues that's supposed to be returned to the towns and cities every year. And we can talk more about that particular issue later, I hope. There's also about $300 million in what they call additional assistance that comes from the states to the towns. $200 million in special ed circuit breaker, and about another $500 million for things that we need in the towns and cities. That's $6 billion that the state reps from the suburban communities and the cities need to go up there and fight to protect. And then we need to go ahead and have that top to bottom review of all state government services and agencies to finally look at them from top to bottom again. We know there's waste and inefficiency there. Hold them accountable. What is it the service you provide? Are you doing a good job? Are you being a good steward of the tax dollars of the citizens? The last thing I'll point out, though, is you've seen what they do when you pass these ballot initiatives. The chances are they're going to block it as much as they can, even if you do pass it. Your choice is to send a representative up there who's going to fight for that tax dollar for your pocket, and if nothing else, at least be a strong advocate for finally getting the government to roll back to 5%, which is very achievable. $700 million off the state budget is $2.50 of waste and inefficiency that we need to find for every $100. We can do that. While this will have a strong impact, the thing is you're going to need representation up there. You're going to look out for the tax dollars and hold the government accountable.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Ms. Benson.
Thank you. I oppose this, and I just want to make sure that's clear. This question is, I think, unfairly worded on the ballot because it doesn't go into what the ramifications of this would be. Basically, we're talking about 40% of the state revenue. That's over $12 billion. Now, here in Lunenburg, we get about 40% of our school funding, our education funding from the state. So if we're looking at that, I see a minimum of a $3 million cut out of our school budget here in Lunenburg. And that doesn't even take into account the grants that we get from the state, the other pothole money, circuit breaker money that we get from the state. So that's right off the top. Now other services we know will be cut, like public safety, DPW, roads repair, snow plowing, the list goes on. And I'm not saying it to scare you, I'm saying it because it's a fact. I've sat for 2 years in Finance Committee with them and listening to what goes on in the budget, and there's not a lot of waste and inefficiency in this town's budget, I can tell you that. So we are talking about large service cuts. Now these cuts would not be able to be made up through property tax increases because of Proposition 2.5, we can only go up 2.5% on our levy. So these would translate into real cuts and a rash of Prop 2.5 overrides across the state in order to make up for it. The problem with that is that property taxes are the most regressive form of taxation. It inordinately burdens our senior citizens and our low-income families. Now, if we look back at the data from when we dropped down from 5.95% income tax to 5.3%, we know who was affected and what the savings actually were. Now, for people in the bottom 20% of the wage earners, so people making under $20,000, they saved approximately $10 a year. And for people who are in the top 1%, now this was also in conjunction with a reduction in dividends and interest money income, taxation on dividends and interest income. The top 1% of earners saved $10,000 a year. This is going to hurt our seniors and our most vulnerable people, and I can't support it. Now, if it passes, and it passes in this district, I will go from town to town, hold town hall meetings, and talk about the specific cuts to each town so that people know exactly what they are voting on. It's critical that we know what the ramifications of these decisions are. I don't like to pay taxes. I understand that. Nobody likes to pay taxes, but we have expectations we need to live up to in the state, and this would be devastating to our economy.